We are live. All right, everybody, you guys know what it is. The one and the only, the American Cholo podcast, broadcasting live and directly from North Hollywood, California. My name is Gil, and I am the American Cholo. Man, what a day. It is Thursday. What's it? Today, April 4th, Chris? Is that correct? It's 6:30 p.m. First of all, I want to thank you guys for tapping in, tuning in here tonight. You know, you guys are chilling. It's a little rainy and cold out here in beautiful Southern California. But let's just go ahead and jump right into this, man. Today, our guest is a former Green Beret who deployed 10 times and served as a member of George Bush's Military Service Advisory Council. He is an advocate for vets around the country, and today we have the honor to have him here as a guest. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Michael Rodriguez.
Hi, hermano. Hey, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man.
How you doing, Michael?
Hey, dude, awesome.
Man, I appreciate you coming on, brother.
No, I'm humbled to be here, man. Like, when I came into town, like, I hit you up. I was like, hey, bro, I just want to take you out a cup of coffee or something. Like, no, bro, meet me here at 6. And then I didn't find out a few hours ago, like, no, we're going to film.
No,
like, oh,
yeah.
Damn. All right, cool.
We've been going back and forth for, I don't know, a little over a year or something like that. Yeah. I saw you, in the IG world, and I immediately looked and saw, I said, all right, wait a minute, there's a military guy. I started doing my homework on you. That's when I said, no, man, anytime you're in town, hit me up, bro. And that's why we built the studio, so we can do stuff like this, man. So
I appreciate it, man. It means a lot, man.
For sure. So let's just jump right into it, man. Where were you born and raised?
So I was actually born in Deming, New Mexico, but my entire life I lived in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Las Cruces, New Mexico?
Yeah.
And how was it in Las Cruces back in those days?
It was good, man. I mean,
a small town, or
it's the second largest city in New Mexico, but it's still small. I mean, I think population is a little over 100,000 with the city and surrounding areas, surrounding towns like Hatch, Chile, and Hatch is right next to El Rincon and Mesilla and all that area. But it's not very big. But
what were you doing as a kid out there to pass time?
Man, growing up, school, and then I played soccer, and then I got into boxing a little bit, and then just school and try to stay out of trouble a little bit.
And your parents, what were they doing back then?
So my dad worked. He was we come from a working familia.
Right.
My dad worked. He worked delivering ice. As a matter of fact, delivering ice and milk. So the day after I was born, my dad started as a milkman. So I can say my dad was a milkman, right? So my dad's a milkman. I know, right? And then
literally, huh?
Yeah, and then delivering ice, and he did that, until he retired, and he's like early 60s. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you got any siblings?
Yeah, I got three younger brothers, man. 3 younger brothers. Yeah.
So what was the thing that made you first want to believe you wanted, or as a kid, did you want to go to like the service?
Yeah. So like I always tell people. Because I served for like 21 years and had the blessing.
Thank you, brother. That's great.
I still do it if they let me, man. I got blown up on too many times. They're like, hey, bro, you got to go. But my first heroes growing up was my father and my grandfathers and all my great uncles. My father's a Vietnam veteran, and and then the generation prior, they all served in World War II, and they would. We don't really have comic books or anything like that. Right. I watched G.I. Joe on Saturdays when I could, but we couldn't really afford any of that other stuff. So really, my heroes were them growing up, and they never talked about the war to glamorize their service. But what I do remember most is they talked about the men they served with, right? Okay. Those to the left and right. And when they spoke with them, I come from a typical Chicano family man, just very stoic, strong man that don't just very quiet, like reserved.
Yes.
So. But when they talked about these men, I remember their names to this day. They spoke about them with reverence and love. And, in our cultura, it's familia. They were talking about like family. Like, so for me, I was like, wow, who are these tios I never met, and it really left a significant impression on me. And I was like, well, I wanted to pursue that. And at some point, build my own familia outside the home, so that
hey,
was
Chris, is the live on? You sure? Okay. I'm just making sure. I see it here kind of stuck. I don't know why. I'm just making sure. Oh, man, Chris.
Strikes again.
All right. Okay, there we go. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's good, man.
So, your father, your grandfather, they all came from that military service, and you're hearing the stories of them. So when was the first inclination that you said to yourself, you know what, I'm going to get in the service?
As far back as I can remember, a little chavalito out there playing war, dirt clod wars, or like playing war with sticks and stuff, right? Like I always remember, like I want to do that, I want to do that, I want to do that. So when I graduated my senior year, I was getting ready to graduate. I was 16, so a little younger. I talked to my parents, and then I was like, hey, I want to join. They're like, well, my dad, he was a Vietnam veteran. He served. He did his one tour. He served in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive, which was the height and probably the most challenging time. And he didn't have the best experience. And he was like, Mijo, I don't want you to. I said, Dad, that's what I want to do. So it took some convincing, and they signed the paperwork when I turned 17 for me to join the Army.
And you went out to boot camp.
Yeah, I went out to boot camp. Man.
So, give me that experience. Are you on a bus over there?
So, well, like...
what year was this?
Yeah, this was 92.
Okay,
So 1992, I wanted to join. I want to be airborne, right? I want to be airborne. And I was like, I want to be airborne ranger. And I had never been in a plane, right? So I swear, I'd never been in a plane. I mean, we didn't travel a lot. Like typical familia, just a car ride here and there, and that's it. That's your travel. We couldn't afford no plane tickets. So I remember I signed up. I drove to the El Paso where the recruiter took me, and I signed all the stuff like airborne, and this is the job you'll get. I'm like, andale, all right, we're ready. So then I reported, and they put us, all the guys I flew to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, was where my basic was at. So I flew to Fort Sill, and I'm like, I'd never been in a plane. Then I start getting dizzy and motion sickness, and I'm like, and I'm sitting around, we're all together, all the guys going to boot camp, and I'm like, I gotta puke, and I don't want to be, chavala and grab the vomit bag, right? I'm like, oh my god. So I'm holding it, and then as soon as I couldn't hold it, so we land, and I puke all over myself, man. Bro. And then
that's the first impression you're giving to the guys.
First flight, and then I'm like, son of a gun, and then the guys are like, dude, what happened? They're like, and I was the only one of that group that chose airborne. They're in your airborne too, and I'm like, oh my god. So that stuck with me through boot camp and training.
Did they call you Puke Boy or something?
No.
They didn't give you the nickname yet?
No, not really. And then the next time I was in a place, I did that. Then the next time I was in a plane was in airborne school, and I had to jump out of it.
Is that the one that they show, like you see in the movies, and they're all racked up?
Yeah,
like a chain?
It's a static line, so you hooked up, and when I was in airborne school, you train in, it's called a stick or a chalk, like a squad, right?
Right.
I was the last guy, so I was like E1. So then I was like, all right, I put in my mind for the first 2 weeks of training, just follow the guy in front, like be like a cattle, right? Just go, and next thing you know, I'll be out. That was the training. So on jump week, the C-130s were the birds that we were using. They landed, and then they're like, all right, file in. So you go up the ramp. So you go on the ramp, you sit down. We sit down, I'm the last one in the bird. I sit down, and right in front of me is the door. And I'm like, nah, I can't be the first guy. There's got to be a door up there somewhere, man. I'm looking up ahead, and then the jump master, the instructor that manages, that gets everyone together, and he's like, oh, you're number 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, and I look to the guy next to me, and another 18-year-old, he's like, yeah, bro, it's you. And I start shaking. I swear I started shaking. Man. He goes, dude, stop. You're scaring me. I'm like, bro, you're going to have to kick me out. So then, you take off, and then 10, 15 minutes later, you're over the drop zone. Shit. They open the door, and they're like, stand in the door. So then the first jumper has to stand like halfway in, halfway out. And that was me. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, oh, he's going to have to kick me out, man. I look down, I'm like, that's too far. And I look up, I see the engines, and I'm like, oh, no, I can't look at, what am I looking at? I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. But then they do so much training, you could see the green light kind of off, right? He was like, go. And then before I knew it, I was jumped out of the plane.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's a great story. Yeah, so you got 18-year-old Michael, green as can be, and you ain't a green beret. You're just green right now.
Yeah.
How is that once you're going down there? Does the chute automatically open?
Yeah, so about 4 seconds after you jump, you go in your position and do performance, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. If it doesn't open, then you pull your reserve, right? But it opened, and then I was just like, it was so peaceful. It was so serene. I wasn't scared. I'm not scared of heights, but I was just like,
the whole experience.
It was just everything up to that terrified me. So that was just, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. But then you have to jump 4 more times after that to graduate.
Now, how does that actually work? Do you get like 2 handles? Or?
So depending on the parachutes, the newer ones are super nice. The one that my son's airborne, he's still in right now. Theirs are a lot nicer than ours were back then. But you can pull on. They're called risers, right? You can pull on them, and then you'll
well, let's say if you pull to the right, are you going to the left? Is it one of those?
If you pull to the right, you pull the direction you want to go. Right. So back then, you would just pull the whole riser. You'd grab it and you pull it, and so the parachute, if you think about it, would tilt like this.
In the air. Oh,
so okay. Like that, okay. Right? So that's kind of how you did it, and then you landed. But that was, like I said, that was like, oh man, I date myself. That was.
Now, how 92? Was that for you? Because I mean, you're coming from a pretty small town. It's not a huge, small little country, but it's pretty small. And then you're walking on these bases that I mean, you got these helicopters, airplanes.
Oh man, it was. I loved it. I did because it was. I wanted to see things. I wanted to experience it, and it was amazing. It was like all the toys I had. I could see them for real. It was a blessing for me. I mean,
what was the toughest thing of boot camp, if there was for you?
boot camp was pretty easy. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay.
So and I'm not some like I'm not gonna say I'm a machingon or whatever, but I trained.
Let's put it chingón.
I trained for it, right?
Okay.
So when I showed up, I could run fast. I was an athlete. I could do all the push-ups and everything. So like when you do those PT tests, like I had the highest score. I was the fastest guy. So when it came to physical stuff, it wasn't challenging. I had a lot of fun. Even like the gas chamber where you CS gas you and all. I mean, I had so much fun because I was playing big guy war, right? And I had so much fun. It was hot as hell, and it was humid in Oklahoma when I was there in the summer in June. But aside from that, I didn't really think it was that hard. I had a lot of fun.
Okay.
I really did.
So now you graduate boot camp.
Yeah.
Right. Where's the first place?
So then I got sent to I didn't end up going to be an airborne ranger because the job I had, they were like, no, you can't do that job. With the job you had, they sold me a line, right?
Well, don't they do that a lot at boot camp? They say, when you go sign up, yeah, you're gonna be this.
The recruiter got me, man. So I was like, all right. So I ended up going to Fort Drum in New York and 10th Mountain Division, and I'm glad I got to go up there because it couldn't be more a different environment for me growing up in southern New Mexico. And if you go to upstate New York, I remember one year it snowed like 4 feet on Mother's Day. That's in May.
Oof.
So super cold. But the reason I'm happy that I went there because I got sent to Fort Drum towards the end of '92, and then of '92 for people that remember, that's when Somalia started.
Oh, yes.
So then 93 was really when Somalia started picking up, and 10th Mountain Division was decisively engaged. So I got to deploy to Somalia in 1993 and was there up right before, just before the whole Black Hawk Down incident that everybody's familiar with. That happened in October of that year. So I was there.
So you're already in Somalia?
Yeah, I was in Somalia. So for me, it was good because then I got to see, what the United States military does. It's like, yeah, we're good at hunting down bad guys. I'll say this right now. I did a lot of it. We're the best there's ever been, right? You're not going to get away. We're going to find you and do what needs to be done.
Execute
but we also provide hope, safety, security to those that need it because that mission was to, get the rice that was being hijacked by the warlords to get it inland to the people that needed it because of the famine. So I got to see that. We would go to Mogadishu, pick up a rice convoy, escort it, and then we'd go out to the camps, like 80, 90 miles in.
I think people don't know, these are extremely poor countries, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's where you go to, you get these camps like Baidoa was the town where we did a lot of our distribution at, and you see these children in these camps huddled under tarps, and it's just children. Their parents are dead. They didn't survive. Children distended bellies, no teeth because they're malnourished, and you show up with food. And you're working with the NGOs like Red Cross, Care and Concern, all the others that were assisting. And then you see these kids just get up and they can barely walk, but they're smiling. That's oppression. That's survival. They don't even know if they're going to make it the next day or that afternoon.
Right.
But when you show up with that food and then you give it to them, that's for me as a young 18-year-old private. It was. It was tremendously impactful for me, and that's when I was like, man, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to do this because it opened my eyes to what we can do as a nation, but in the military, and it provided me that opportunity from, some payaso from Las Cruces, New Mexico, man. But then I got put in that situation because of a decision to serve my nation in uniform, and it opened my eyes and really, helped me.
Was there much combat in Somalia?
We would get shot at. There was some. We had some exchanges of gunfire here and there, but it wasn't too bad. But it was. I mean, I my first firefight outside of what happened. I grew up in Cruces, New Mexico. Man, there's gangs, right? There's a lot of shooting. There's a lot of that going on. Yeah, man, yeah. There's all that. So outside of like being at a party with drive-bys and things like that, then okay, but there was a little bit different. So I got the exposure to that as well, but.
Okay,
really
so now you're leaving Somalia. Take us to the journey of the places you were getting deployed to, and what.
Yeah, so I stayed at Fort Drum in New York 10th Mountain Division, and then for people that remember history, in 1994 there was a military coup that occurred in Haiti, right? Raul Cedras, who was the military general at the time, overthrew Aristide, the democratically elected president, and then the United States was like, wait, well, no, you can't do that. So I was part of the task force. I got placed, I went from Fort Drum to Norfolk, Virginia. They put us on an aircraft carrier, the task force I was with. We went down there, and then basically I was on an aircraft carrier for like 9 days with the task force getting ready to go in. So we were there. Special operations had their own task force on a different ship. There were already Green Berets already there. Inland,
but at this point, you're
others.
just
I was just a regular Army guy.
Okay.
You know. And then they brought in, you know, the 82nd Airborne Division and the Ranger battalions were circling overhead, and then they sent some of the command in there to sit down with the general that taking over the country. They're like, look, you might want to think about not just stepping down, because there's, you know, a whole can of whoop ass above you and right outside that's about to come in here and, you know, take care of business. Right. So, you know, I remember before we went in, we had 3 ROE cards, which is a rules of engagement. So we had a white one, a red one, and a black one. And the red one was like, look, if you think there's a threat, engage it. The black one was like, all right, they have to have a crew-served weapon, which is like an M60 or belt-fed weapon or M240, you know, like a bigger gun, and they got to be pointing at you. Then you can engage them. And the white one is you basically go in with flowers in your hair, right? Like, hey, man, we're here to help, right? So
you're the UN.
We were there, right, basically. So we were there. I remember sitting on the aircraft carrier waiting to go in on the helicopter. We were at Port-au-Prince, and our job was to seize the port so we could bring in everything else. The group I was with, and then we were like, you know, like, oh, this is it. We're going to go in. And then at the last minute, hey, RE white. We're like, man. I sound like a warmonger, but, you know, you put yourself in that position, you're like, okay. So we went in, and thankfully so, because saved a lot of innocent lives.
You're looking for some actions. So.
Right. But, you know, and as a mature adult male now, I look back and I'm like, yeah, that's a good thing, because we would have killed a lot of people. Right. A lot of innocent lives would have been lost.
How was the carrier life? Like, those things are huge,
man. Right? They're huge. I was just him and I were my son.
Monster. What monster?
Monster
is that?
3. Monster 3 is with me. Yeah. We were just talking about it. Like, I used to get lost on it. It's remarkable what my brothers and sisters in the Navy are capable of doing, but then the vessels that they play. So I was on their biggest one, and I was like, man, how do you live like this? But I was on one of their biggest one, the Eisenhower. And I had tremendous respect for my hermanos y hermanas in the Navy, man. They're amazing.
How's the sleeping quarters?
They're pretty tight. The berthings is what they call them. There was like 6 berthing, like there were like 6 bunk beds, 6 or 8, I can't remember.
Right.
And you roll over, and, you know, you're smelling the vato next to you, man. There's like, you know, 18, 24 inches between you and them, and it's very tight quarters. But it was good.
So you became a Green Beret. Mm-hmm. So what was the motivation for that?
So those 2 deployments I just talked about.
Yes.
So I saw them. There were always special forces, you know, Green Berets there, and I remember in Somalia seeing them. They were always there before us doing something, and they were interactive.
They're the front liners.
Yeah, they were like always. I was doing stuff, but they were interact with the locals a lot more. And I remember in Somalia there was a team, a special forces detachment that had a pet monkey. And I was like, oh man, how do you get a pet monkey, right? So then, and they weren't wearing all the bullshit we had to wear, right? Like all the extra stuff. They were just comfortable, and they were just different. And then I saw them again in Haiti. You know, we got there, and I'm like, man, these guys had long hair.
Cool ass vatos,
right, you know.
Here,
and I'm like, they put their hands in their pockets, because I don't know if people know this, but like if you're in uniform, like I know soldiers and Marines aren't allowed to, Army and Marines, you're not allowed to put your hands in your pockets.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, no.
The big no-no, huh?
No, it's against regulations. You cannot put your hands in your pockets. But I saw those guys with their hands in their pockets, and I'm like, man, they can get away with that shit. And then I remember one time there was a bunch of guys, they were screwing around, like horse playing, like play fighting, whatever. And this guy goes over there, this captain went over there to go yell at him. And they all laughed at him, because they were like, get out of here, man. Because one of the guys that was fighting was the captain of that team. So they get the fuck out of here, man. You know. So I was like, I want to do that someday, you know. So
they're rough, but they do their own rules because they take care of business.
Yeah, a little mature. So that's what I wanted to do. So then it was after that I decided to go to selection and try to become a.
And how does that happen? You go and ask somebody, or?
Yeah, you put in a packet, and you know you submit a like an application, right?
Okay.
And put in a packet, and then if you get accepted, you pass the physical. Then you can go to.
How long after you've put the packet in did you get a response?
Probably about 3 months. You know, you find a special forces recruiter. They have them everywhere. They're always trying to build the force, right?
Oh, okay.
So I found one, and then I went to selection. It's at Fort Bragg, out at Camp McCall, a training facility out there. And then it's like 3 weeks of just them, you know, kicking
breaking
your teeth. Yeah, well, like. And it's all individualistic. Like the first 2 weeks is all individual events, and then the last week is a team event.
Oh, really?
So the first 2 weeks is structured to where like you would show up, and they're like, you know, they put on the whiteboard, like, hey, be here with this equipment at this time. You don't know what you're gonna do, right? So you're there, and they only.
But is it a class of you guys that?
Yeah, there was like 300 of us. So
you got some big old monster guys
yeah,
too, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of cats there. So, and you have these numbers you put on a piece of tape, and it's your number. Like I was 234. Like
you're not a name.
Candidate 234. That's what they called you, candidates. So, and you're only allowed to sleep 4 hours a night.
What?
4 hours. That was it the entire time. So you could not be asleep. If you were asleep, like they would walk through the barracks, like you 4 hours a night. That was it, the entire time. Shit. So during individual week, you would show up like, hey, be here with this equipment, rucksack weighing, whatever. Then you'd show up, and then there'd be the cadre, and they're not yelling at you. I mean, there's no need to yell at you. You either do it or you don't, and they don't tell you the standard. They're like, all right, this iteration is like, hey, follow the cones, move as fast as you can. All right, go. You have no idea how long you're going to be following these cones, so you just go, and you got a rucksack, or you're running, and you just follow the cones. It could be 5 miles. It could be 15, 20 miles. You don't know, but they're assessing you. So it's a bunch of events like that for 2 weeks, and then the last week they put you in a team. And then in that team, they like, all right, the captain, like, all right, we want you to, like, they make a guy a leader, and all right, do this task. And it might be moving a Jeep with only 3 wheels. And they give you all these poles and stuff, and that's usually, there's a group of 12 and 15. You figure it out, man. Knock it out. So they assess how you lead, but they also assess how you contribute to the team.
And how you problem solve.
And then, and problem solving. And then at the end of that, not only are they assessing you, but if we're all in a team together, you do a peer eval. So that I can say, like, man, Gil was awesome. I'm going to rank him number 1. But this vato sucked. I'm going to rank him number 18. So then they look at it, and everybody ranks one individual the bottom or whatever. Then, all right, you're out too. We're not gonna keep you. And people quit all the time though. So it's not easy to do.
I think you flew through it. It made it sound very easy because they do. Out of 300 people, how many people make the?
There was out of my class, there was like 340. I think we had like 80.
That quit.
That were at the end.
Oh, 80 that made
there was like, okay, there was 110 that made it to the end, and then there was like almost 80 that got selected. Because just because you make it all the way to the end doesn't mean you're going to select it. Because then you do an interview, and you're doing IQ tests, you're doing psychological tests during all this time. So you may have been, awesome, but then they like, hey, for whatever reason, hey, candidate 234.
You might not have all the screws in there, right?
Yeah, you're not what we're looking for.
Now, why would other people just flat out quit?
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. So
this wasn't like regular boot camp.
No. This was challenging. No, it was hard. It was rough, especially like because you're being assessed, so you don't know. Okay, what are you assessing me on? Like I'm there to perform. I'm seeking.
So give me like a 24-hour day of one of the hardest days that you had there in training. What were you guys doing?
Well, it was actually team week. I remember the first day of team week for me was I was in. And they structure the teams a certain way. So I was in team 1. And they were sneaky. We didn't figure this out until later on we figured it out. So when they put you together, you're with this group for like, 2 weeks of 300-some people. Half of the team I recognized. Half of the other team I didn't recognize. And I couldn't figure it out. Half was, hey, I remember seeing you. So you're talking, and you can joke around, whatever. But what they did on team 1, it was pretty smart. So what they did was they got the guys that were fastest in all the events, and then they got the guys that were slowest in all the events, and they put them all on the same team. Okay. So what they did was they put, and I was in pretty good shape. I prepared. So I was like one of the fastest runners and ruckers, right? Like with rucksack, so they put us on there. So then on day 1 team week, we had to carry these ammo cans. And they're like, okay, go. So they're like heavy. So we did like, hey, 45 paces, stop, go to the next one, 45 paces, stop. And you're doing this for like 9-10 miles, in addition to carrying all the weight you're carrying.
And I think they don't tell you on purpose where the end is. That way they want to see where your end is.
Yeah. So for us, you had the guys that were the most shaped and guys that weren't. So like the first, within the first hour, half the team quit, and then we figured it out. Like those were the slower guys, and they did that on purpose, right? Like to make sure
drop them out,
and we crushed them, but then we had to carry their weight. So then that sucked. Sucked.
But they're training you because if you're in the shit and these guys can't keep
right,
you got to pick up their.
So for me,
slack.
that's like one example of what was in there. And a lot of the events you don't know them. A lot of stuff still kept secret because they don't want people to know what they're going to be in for when they show up to those selections.
Now,
so when prepare for
when guys quit, is it something they tell everybody? The instructors say, "Hey, this guy quit." How does that go?
Well, we all see it for one,
He just goes and
and this is what they used to do back in the day. They don't do it no more, but they used to have this. So you have to move out of the barracks. So they had this thing. They called it the shack of shame, and it was like an army building. Like you would imagine a World War II building, because they were World War II buildings, but they painted it like a camouflage, like the old school camouflage, the BDU woodland camouflage. And then they would put the guys in there and they'd keep them on camp for like 3 days so that everyone could see them. They weren't allowed to eat in the chow hall. They had to eat outside. So it was like a shame thing. So they called it the shack of shame. And we all saw it. You'd see them. You're like, I wouldn't even look at them. I'm like, man, I didn't want to look at those guys. That's what they used to do, but they stopped doing that. But when I went through, there was the shack of shame.
The shack of shame.
I don't want to
You don't want to be the shack of shame.
No, man, I don't be the shack of shame. So.
All right, so now you graduate boot camp. Mm-hmm. How many years have you been in the service at this time?
So when I finished the selection, like hey, you can come back to continue the qualification course.
Oh, so this is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning. They're like, you're not a Green Beret yet, right? So then when you complete selection, they're like, we would like you to attend the Special Forces qualification course, SFQC, but it's called the Q course, is for short, the qualification course. And then they tell you what job you're going to be. So for me, it was, there's different jobs. There's like a weapons guy, an engineer guy, a medic guy, and a communications guy. Now you're a Green Beret like fighter first, but each of us have a specialty. And depending on the specialty, some of them are longer than others. I was like, I want to be weapons. I want to do that. But, and that course is about like just short of a year. About a year, you'll be a Green Beret. But then the longest one is the medic course. That's like 2.5 years. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. But of course, that's my luck is what it is. So like, you're going to be a medic. I'm like, I don't care. I just happy to be here. Right. So what they do is they tell you your job. You go home, then you come back to Bragg. They PCS you, they move you there, and then you start the Q course. And then even then with the Q course, there's no guarantee you're going to make it, because there's something that's in Special Forces, even through the Q course, even when you get to team, is selection is never ending. It means you're always being assessed. So when you get to the Q course, during those 2.5 years we started with, in my 18 Delta class is the medics, we had, there was like 78 guys, and we ended up with 15 of us graduating.
Wow.
16. I'm sorry, there were 16 of us.
Very selective.
Yeah, so it's hard academically and physically, and there's a lot of stuff. So, you continue to weed guys out, and then that took me, when I graduated the Q course, I had about 6.5, almost 7 years in the Army, and I'm a Green Beret. But then you get to your team, and I'm graduated, I know all this stuff, but then you get to a team of guys that have been doing it for a long time. You don't know shit.
You're green,
right? You're like, you're green.
Yeah, you're
bro.
green.
You're
bro.
green. So just shut up. So that's
you
what you
got to earn.
Yeah. Yeah, I was fortunate that I had combat experience, and I had a couple of deployments, which wasn't normal during the 90s, right? After Desert Storm, there wasn't really a lot going on, but I was, like I said, I was lucky enough to have been involved in Somalia and Haiti.
For sure.
But I still didn't go in there like I knew what I was talking about. So then you get to your team, and then you really start learning.
So where was your team when you met them and all that?
So there was...
And how big is a team of Green Berets?
12 guys.
That's it,
12 guys, yeah, 12 guys.
12 bad SOBs, bro.
12 hombres, man. So he was at Fort Bragg, so I got assigned to, so there's different Special Forces groups, and each of the Special Forces groups are regionally oriented across the world. So in Special Forces, we're allowed to segregate you by your background, and this is what I mean by this. So 7th Group had their area of operations is Central and South America. So it makes sense to send all the people who are Latinos to 7th Group. And that's where I got sent. I already spoke Spanish, right? So then it made sense, because when you go down there and you're working with locals, if you already can identify with the culture, then it's a little bit easier.
Right.
So then that's 7th Group is Central South America. 1st Group is Asia. 5th Group is the Middle East. 10th Group has bounced back and forth between Africa and Europe. And then 3rd Group has been the Middle East as well, but then also worked in Africa. So what you'll see is, based off of, at least it's a little bit different now with the war, things changed, but this is pre-war, right? Yes. I was a Green Beret before the war started in 2001. So it was like based off of who you were, what you looked like. Okay, you're going to that group, or you're going to that group, and it made sense. There's nothing wrong with doing that, because it increases your efficiency when you go in there. And then they teach you a language. So the guys that went to 10th group were taught like Russian or French. People who went to Africa were taught French. Some people were taught Mandarin Chinese, Tagalog, Thai. I mean, Spanish. I mean, they teach you languages. So some guys went to language school after they graduated for 6 months, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day to learn that language. Because when they insert us to wherever it is, you don't get no interpreter. Go in there and work with the people, figure it out. You know, train the other snakes to fight, right? And because everyone we train, wherever we go, that's one less soldier of ours that has to go fight. So we teach them how to fight for themselves. Now, we're fully capable of conducting our own operations unilaterally as like a hit or to take out a compound or whatever it is. But the thing I loved about what drew me to becoming a Special Forces Green Berets, I get to work with the locals. I get to learn their language and learn their culture, understand why they think the way they think, and then communicate through them, but respecting and learning their culture.
Where did you go? Where was the first place you ended up going?
So I've been to Central and South America quite a few times, and then Afghanistan. I never went to Iraq, and then Somalia as well.
How was Central America?
Depending on the country, you know, it's they're all unique. For me, you know, with our heritage, right? I'm like, oh, it's going to be awesome. But the first shock for me was everywhere I went down there, I was still a gringo.
Yeah,
they didn't give a damn.
Yeah, people trip out and say, "Soy mexicano, soy
no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Let them know, brother. I've been telling them they get upset at me.
Yeah.
You American.
But no, it's the truth, you know? So I spent a lot of time in Colombia.
You can speak Spanish all day long fluently, but...
Perfectly. And I could sound, I mean, and my Spanish sounds like, I'm from Mexico, right? I can do that. But they don't give a shit. They know. Yeah, they know. Like, eres un gringo. Like, what? And for me, you know, growing up, the gringo was like an insult. I'm like, God, what do you mean? ¿Qué está llamando gringo, you know? But that's the way it is. So I spent a lot of time down there, and it was I enjoyed learning a little bit more about our culture as Latinos as a whole, as opposed to the culture that I was, you know, the Mexicano, Chicano culture. That
the whole thing.
So I got to see a lot more of the influence of, you know, from when the Spanish came over, and how the difference, the influence South America versus Central America. And it was really interesting for me to see how it progressed, as well as the language and how it's used, and a lot of the idiomatic expressions that we use.
The different slangs there is in different countries.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was. I loved watching. I'm sure everyone else has seen it too, but Narcos, right?
Oh yes.
So I watched that and I just laughed. I'm like, oh my gosh, they did such a good job at capturing Colombianos and how they talk, and the idiomatic expressions they love to, like hijo de puta. They love to say that. They say that.
But the way they say it.
The other one that I was surprised that he was like te lo juro. They love to say te lo juro, te lo juro. They're like I swear, like, you know. But it was really I enjoyed it a lot.
It's the same, I guess, El Salvador, but they're more hijo de la gran puta, right? It's just a different vibe.
They'll have the inflections.
Now, why did you go? You were in Colombia.
Yeah,
what was the mission in Colombia? If you can talk about it now.
A lot of our stuff was a lot of the counter-narcotics stuff, and some of the other things that were going on down there.
Now, what do they do? They fly you guys out there in choppers? You guys going?
It depends, you know, where you're going. But usually you'll have a bird that go out there. There's airfields all over the place. Then you know, whether it was in Colombia or like in Bolivia, you know, you go out there and work with the DEA and some of the eradication, finding labs and doing.
So you're almost like, just say the narco movies. You're like those guys that the DEA guy would have with them, and you're their muscle for them. I mean, pretty much.
Well, we never did anything unilaterally, meaning it wasn't just U.S. guys going in there, but we're working with the nations, like their top tier, like their Delta Force guys going in to find, either looking for individuals or looking for, you know, labs or things like that. Yeah.
So did you run across labs while you were there?
Oh, quite a bit. Yeah.
And how were the labs out there like?
You know, when you get out there, I wish people would look at it. They did this in Narcos again. They did a pretty good job. But you go out there and you're not going to come across some like big, you know, cartel boss or something. You're just some campesinos out there trying to make a living. Right. They're just like, look, they're just trying to feed their family. And what they do is they grow coca, and then they mash it, and then they sell it. And then they get like pennies on what it is that they make. Right. You know, I don't know what a Kia Coke goes for today. I knew what it used to back then, but I don't know what it goes for today. But they don't know this, and they're at the bottom level, but they're just trying to make a living. And I'm not saying it's okay, but it's just when you go there, you're not like some of the movies glamorize it. You know, like this,
big old factories, and they're just
factories, and they're fighting there. You're getting no, they're just like, oh man.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. They're regular farmers, and I forgot what they used to grow in. I think some coffee in Colombia, but it wasn't paying the bills. So I think they get farmers to go there, and I think they buy like a kilo for like $50 or something like that, maybe less. So I'm buying 30 or 40 kilos from each one of these little small families for $50. Then start slanging it down the hill.
Yeah, and then Colombia is unique because of at that time, the FARC, and they were like revolutionaries, right? Now since things have changed, they're a recognized political. The FARC is anyway like a recognized political party of Colombia, which is unique. And it's weird how Colombia, or not just Colombia. I'm not pointing fingers. I love the country and I love the people. But like even down there, so while I was in Bolivia at one point, we were trying to find Evo Morales because he was the head cocolero of the area. How we know, or maybe we should have known, a few years later, Evo Morales would be voted the president of Bolivia.
That's insane, right?
It's crazy.
That's insane.
Right? But that's just the cultura down there, It's just things are a little bit different.
I think it's almost the same culture out here, but it's just kind of it's more under the table. I mean, if you go back to the history, you see what the CIA was doing with all that stuff in Panama. It was. I mean, I believe that if they really wanted to stop dope coming in here, they could for the most part. But it's what keeps those countries alive.
Yeah, it's when you start getting into geopolitics and like, what's the impact? What is it like? Really, who's making the decisions? I don't know. And that's the thing I enjoyed I considered it as a luxury as a soldado, like a soldier. Yeah, I didn't write the foreign policy. I'm just exactly. I'm hey, tell me what you got to do. I'm gonna do it. Just give me my left and right limits and what I need.
So, how long did it take for you to really become part of the squad out there, or was there any situation that you can kind of remember?
I was you talking about like so the team. So I was lucky. So when I got to the team, I was there for about 4 months before we got like 3 or 4 other new guys, and I was still a new guy. But again, like I've always taken my physical fitness seriously because it's part of my job. It really is. I need to be physically fit and be able to do what it is I need to do. So when I got to my team, if you're strong and fast and you're squared away, you're good, right? No one's going to give you any pedo for that, right? So I did the best I could to try and be like that guy that like, okay, Rod's got it. He'll be the fastest. He'll get that. So when we got some other guys, they may not have been that. So the attention of the more senior guys started turning onto them, and they left me the hell alone. I'm like, all right, cool,
But I would think they'd also respect Rod a little bit more because if I get shot, Rod's the one that's gonna put me up, bro.
Yeah, and I was lucky when I got to my team. I was the only medic on the team. There was a shortage of SF guys, Special Forces guys, a while back, and there still is now. But there was only ever one medic, so they would like, all right, we kind of need him, and a team can't go on a mission. They won't be given a mission without an 18 Delta medic. So I was a little lucky because I would take care of them. If they would get sick, they would I take care of them. But it became like a familia for me. And this is when I really started seeing that because I would care for their children because as an 18 Delta, I was taught in just about everything you could imagine, and we would do surgeries. I mean, I wouldn't do it back here stateside, but I've delivered babies all over the world. I've worked in several trauma centers here in the United States. I can do dentistry. I can do veterinary medicine. I do my own. We travel with our own lab work, so I can culture your blood and see what it is and give you the correct antibiotics for that. So that's why our school is so long. So we're trained in a lot of things. So when the kids get sick, they wouldn't even take them to the clinic. These are Army guys, right? They would, hey, Rod, my kid's sick. Oh, boom, because it's a familia. Their kids are my kids.
It's my deal.
So, boom, I would go. I would show up, or they bring them over to the house, and I'd have my own stuff. Okay, cool, here we go, boom, boom.
How long were your deployments?
It depended on the mission. Some missions were shorter. I think my shortest deployment was probably like 12 weeks, I think. That was my shortest deployment. So, my longest probably about 9 months.
So when you guys, let's say the 12-week one, it's done. Where was home base for you guys?
At Fort Bragg.
Did you have your family there at the time, or was it just
at Bragg? Yeah, at Fort Bragg. Yeah, the family was there. So our story is a little bit different in that my first wife, God rest her soul, she passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, but I'm sorry to hear that, brother.
But she. When I had my sons, my monsters, she kind of bounced, You know.
Now, before we do the thing, before people try to say, what is he talking about? Before you had your monsters, who are your monsters?
So my monster, I have 3 of them, Monster 1, Monster 2, and Monster 3. So when I had my first child, my son, Antonio, I was like, I remember he was born, I got my own little monster. So I was calling him my monster. And then I had another one, another son, Monster 2. I have another one, Monster 3. He's here in the studio.
There's
with me
Monster
right
3 right now.
Monster
Shout out to
3.
Monster 3.
Yeah.
Monster 3, Monster 2, Monster 1. But
Yeah,
Monster
and
3 is
then
here.
and now I have a grandson. My oldest son has a son.
What are we calling
Right,
him?
so Monster 1 V2, Monster 1 version 2, right? So that's what we do. That was the numbering system I came up with. So
cool.
so the birth mother, so she kind of gave birth to my 2 first sons, and then took off, and I ended up with them. So I stayed on the team. So my kids would go to New Mexico to stay with my dad, and go to school with their cousins, my brother's kids. And then I will and I will come back, and they
That must have been tough, bro.
It's a little bit of a challenge, you know. And then, you know, my ex-wife, you know, was giving birth again, and thankfully, you know, that's you know, he you know, I was able to get him from the hospital on day 1 because she wasn't the best parent,
right?
You know, and that's Monster 3. So that's how I got but it was just me. You know, so I was figuring it out, and then I met their mother, Kelly, and that, you know, we got married, and she was like the mother that they never had. So their mother is you know, now my ex-wife.
But your ex-wife was also in the service for
yeah,
years,
she
right?
did. She did 21 years.
Shout
and
out
deployed
to
6
her,
times.
man.
Yeah,
That is dope.
She's a badass. Like I'll say
That is dope, bro.
She was she did a lot of stuff, man. Like she's very humble about her service. She's been in firefights. She's done a lot of stuff. She's very humble about it. Very, very humble about it. But she's seen more combat than a lot of men I know.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the socialization of our household was, you know, my son.
Well, it's better for you to have Monster 1, Monster 2 from, you know, the service or from your world instead from the hood.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want that, brother.
Yeah, no, it lucked out. We lucked out, man. It definitely, like, serving the country in the capacity I did is blessed my familia tremendously. You know, it's really given me opportunity to give to my kids more than I ever had. Not that my dad didn't try his hardest, but you know, it provided a great opportunity.
But that's the chiste of America, man, that your father can do something, give you a better life, you take care of business, give your children a better life. You know, that's kind of the beauty of America. And now that I'm on that topic, because a lot of people, I think like a lot of this generation now is starting to almost like not appreciate America, I think. And you've been around the world. You see what it is. And I tell them all the time, man, people are coming here risking their lives, coming from South America all the way up here because they want a taste of the American dream.
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel to hear stuff like, you know?
You know, I don't get upset. I used to get upset when I think about that, only because I think there's a lot of ignorance that exists. And there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. There's a lot. Ignorance just means you don't know something. I'm ignorant about a bunch of stuff. But I think there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to the opportunities that are presented to everyone, every average, everyday American.
Yes.
They don't realize the blessings that they have. They don't realize what it is, the gifts that they have every single day, just by being born here or waking up every day as an American citizen. It's a privilege. It's a blessing. It's the golden ticket. That's why.
Yes, bro,
that's why
you
know, everybody is trying to get here, but I think they're so ignorant of that, and they. You know, I blame them a lot on the media. It's like they make everyone feel like they're a victim of something. I'm like, man, you're not a victim. You want to see victims?
Yes.
Why don't you travel outside the continental United States? And you want to talk about oppression and survival? I always remember that my deployment to Somalia. I remember those children just trying to get through the next day. And I remember the joy and the most beautiful smiles I've ever seen were on those children that we were just bringing them food. Right? And when I hear people complain about stuff here, and I'm like, man, you're so ignorant. You have no idea what it is. And I try to educate people. I'm not going to get upset about it, but I try to educate, well, why don't you look at it a little bit differently? What does oppression, I will start with this way. I'm like, what does oppression mean to you? And they'll tell me. And I'm like, all right, well, did you think about this? Well, define that. Like, how are you being oppressed? Well, what have you done? You know, and just have a conversation with them without attacking them, but have a conversation and try and understand their logic and their thought process. And 9 times out of 10, it's because someone told them they were oppressed, not because they were really oppressed. And if you educate them, or that so the man was holding around, no. Why are you feeling this way? Like, and it turned out like someone told them they were that, and in reality they're not. So I this generation now, I hope that they're incredibly smart. I will say this. So I'm hoping, and I pray at night for this too, that there's going to be a moment where they're going to have a great realization, and the youth of our nation will look at and be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to worry about, I'm at a dance party and all of a sudden some guys come in on some freaking, these and shoot up this dance party like what occurred on October 7th of last year. I don't have to worry about all these things. Yes, there are acts of violence that occur in the continent of the United States, but we are a nation of over 330 million people. There are bad people all over the planet, and if you look at them ratio-wise, it's still one of the safest places to live, which is why everyone wants to come here. Which is why people can still afford to pay. Man, your guys' gas prices are crazy, but pay $6 for a gallon of gas and still get around here, right? So people, I think they just need to.
What do you mean?
Look
Gas
at
prices are great. The economy's great. Everything's keep saying everything's great and everything's great.
No, man, a loaf of bread's $4, man. Come on.
No, more than that. What are you talking here? More than that. No, you haven't.
I haven't bought a loaf of bread here yet. So I'm only had to buy gas.
$12 for a dozen eggs, bro. The chickens are wearing gold chains and driving fucking Bentleys out here, bro. They're going.
That's crazy. Gosh, but like being able to live, So I pray the youth of our nation, and I really think that they'll come to realization and look at the blessings that they have.
Even though I don't believe it will ever happen in our lifetime, do you believe that it would help out our youth and our generation of children if they were like Israel and they had to at least go 1 year in the service?
I would, man. I think it would be great if we were to figure out how to make mandatory service, and it doesn't mean like everyone has to wear the uniform. Just find jobs or create jobs or have, I hate to say create jobs, but like find a need and then provide that opportunity for 1 year. For 12 months, you're going to serve your community.
Yes.
Because that's where the disconnect exists, is no one has to give anything back to this beautiful nation. You have it over here in the corner, JFK's quote, "Ask not what your country could do for you, ask what you could do for your country." Yeah. When that was said, people believed that, and they held to that. If you say that today, someone's probably going to take offense to that.
Yes.
So I would think it would be great for someone to contribute, because to me that is a good patriotic citizen, is someone that is giving back.
In the Raza Chicano community, if you say that and you're woke, you'll be like, that's a white man's quote. That's this. And I'm like, wait a minute, fool. You don't understand. Like you were saying, Rod, in Colombia, you're a white guy, bro.
Yeah.
In Colombia, in Mexico, all the way down, anybody that's here that don't speak the language, you're pocho, you're güero.
Son gabachos, man.
Yeah, son gabachos. And a lot of these young people just don't understand that, bro.
And I really hope that they'll educate themselves, because they're incredibly smart, and if they think about it, like, well, why do I feel this way? Did someone tell me how they feel? Like, man, I don't ever want to be told how to feel. I want to be educated. I want to form my own opinions and my own thoughts and my own emotions. So I think if you just like, well, why are you feeling that way? And start making them, just challenge them in a way where they challenge themselves, they'll realize, like, wait a minute, someone told me to feel like that.
Of course.
I don't feel like that. I don't, because no one wants to be told what to do. Right. Especially how to feel. And that JFK quote, for my parents and my abuelitos and abuelitas, that JFK, I mean, you go to any Chicano household, I know at least in New Mexico, you're going to find, the Virgen, you're going to find Jesus, and you're going to find a picture of JFK. You are. Like, those are the three. The JFK, and he's the one that said that.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, a lot of the loss of the patriot, being patriot for your country and having love for your country, it's almost like it's being pushed that, it's cool to hate your country. It's cool to hate America. Yeah. And that's a sad thing, especially for people who are in the service, currently retired. It's a slap in the face. It really is. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, our audience supports you guys. You wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be the American Cholo if I hated America, baby.
No, yeah.
So now let's shift off to some other deployments. What was what was some of the toughest deployments you were at where Rod actually got the action that he was looking for as a young guy?
Oh, man.
And the saying goes, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Man. So I was a Green Beret and a sniper. I was a senior sniper for my attachment. I'm not really someone to tell those types of stories. But I will tell you the most challenging moments for me in my entire career had to do with it's something I had to call it this so I could process this and see it for what it is, a destruction of innocence. Now what does that mean? Anytime I would come across, because as the medic, right, I was responsible for treating, not just the team and the those that were fighting alongside us wherever I was in the world, but also the local population. And that's how they call it winning hearts and minds. You want to ingrain yourself into the population. So treating, women and children. They would, like in Afghanistan, I'll tell a quick story. I remember one time we would do these medical civic action projects. It's called the MedCap, MEDCAP, Civic Action Project. And we would go in to do one in a local village, and you're going to places where penicillin still works, right? So a child comes in with an infection on the foot, it's probably going to die from that. But if you give them penicillin, bam, you save their life. I mean, just amazing, just basic care that I wish people here in the United States realized, right? But you go there, and we would go there, and we would have our mission, but then there were probably bad guys in that barrio, so then we'd go get them at night, right? So it was kind of how we did business. So we were doing one time, and I always treated the women and children. And they brought me a baby, and the baby still had afterbirth on him. Had been born a few hours prior, and I was just like, oh my gosh. So I took care of it. The mother was malnourished. She wasn't producing milk. So we all had baby blankets and formula. So I just fell in love with this baby. He was born that day. And I had some blankets, and I remember a Winnie the Pooh blanket. I wrapped the baby up, swallowed him, and gave the mom, hey, this is how you do the milk, this is how you make the formula. They've never seen this stuff before. This is everything, and they're like, oh, thank you. So then they leave. So we had a mission that night, and then we're leaving the next day. We're driving back through that village. And as I'm driving through, I looked at, I used to drive the ATV, because as a sniper, you have to kind of sometimes break off to get us in position. And so I was driving a Polaris ATV, and I looked in a window of one of the huts, and I saw the baby blanket hanging in the window like a curtain. I was like, what the? So I was in the back of the car. I was like, hey, I'm going to stop, go to the bathroom real quick. They're, all right. So then the rear vehicle was just watching me. So I pulled over, and I walked up, and the door, it was an open hut, right? So I walked in, and then I saw the mom and dad sitting there, and then they saw me, and then they just shook their head and went like that. And then they looked over in a corner, and there was the baby wrapped, because they wrapped them at night. If someone passes in their culture, they wrap them. They wrap them in the cloth. And then that was like, I had done everything I possibly could, but I felt helpless, completely helpless. When just like maybe 16 hours prior, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful child that I fell in love with is going to live. 16 hours later, I see the child in the corner, So that's like probably one of the most challenging moments of my life, where there wasn't a single thing I could have done. And they looked at me, and they're just like, I felt like I failed. Right. And it was just like, those are the things that like wait for me at night when I close my eyes. Right. So it's not so much the firefights and doing the job, right? Everybody likes to hear all the movies and people see. For me, I'm not saying that's the same for everybody else, but for me, it's those moments. And I have probably about, I don't know how many stories just like that. But those are the things where you go there and you have this like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to save life and provide that hope. And then
you think it's fair to say that like every time something like that happened, you were kind of leaving a piece of your heart? Always,
yeah. Which is why, like towards the end of my career, a lot of us, I don't say we're heartless. It's not a good way to say it, but it's because it's challenging. It's very challenging. We people will wall themselves off, and then you wall yourselves off, then what happens? I wall myself off from my familia, my kids, and then it's a struggle, because where's the balance? Do I let all that in? Because then no. I mean, how do you process all that stuff?
Yeah, I think many people don't see that side of like the service, and that's why servicemen have such a high divorce rate and family issues and even suicides, man.
Yeah,
because all that trauma and they put the wall up, and at the end they don't know how to communicate. So I'm sure you have your issues. How How do you deal with them?
Well, I had to. So when I finally, towards the end of my career, after I got blown up a bunch of times and all my brain injuries, I got sent and they got medically retired. And then I was at Walter Reed for like a month, and they're like, "Hey, Rod, you have all these things wrong, but then you also have severe post-traumatic stress disorder." And I got pissed. I mean, they told me when I was getting medically retired, like, "Look, we think you have chronic traumatic encephalopathy," which is what like Muhammad Ali has, the repetitive brain injuries, and then me boxing and fighting and all the stuff. We think you have that. You're probably going to develop Parkinson's by your 50s.
All the concussions and stuff.
Right, for your 50s, early onset Alzheimer's, dementia. I have a balance disorder, these things, right? And I'm like, all right, cool, I'm good. All right, I can figure that out. I can fight through that. And I was cool with it. I was accepting that. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm gonna, be in an old folks home by the time I'm 60, right? And I was just, that didn't scare me or upset me. But when they said you have severe post-traumatic stress disorder, I got pissed. I go, F you got, I didn't want to accept that. But they're like, look, before we do any of that other stuff, we have to send you somewhere. And I was drinking a lot. I was abusing alcohol. So then they're like, look, you got to go to a dual diagnosis program. So they sent me to an inpatient treatment facility because I'll be honest, I was ready to check out, right? Yeah. So they sent me there, and it was a 4-week program. They kept me for 8 weeks. I needed the extra training, but it saved my life because in there, I remember there's one moment where my psychiatrist goes, Rod, are you suffering? I go, yeah, I'm suffering. I missed Thanksgiving and Christmas, and because I'm in a hospital, because I'm here for me. I go, yeah, I'm suffering. He goes, if you're suffering, it's because you're choosing to suffer. I go, what the hell you mean I'm choosing? He goes, it means the pain and everything you're facing is controlling you. Just take back control. Stop suffering. You're suffering because you're letting it control you. And it just changed my complete view on everything. So I finished the training, finished the 8-week treatment facility, and then continued some more. And I continued to work on myself and realized that there isn't anything I can't face. It's going to suck, but I'm not going to suffer. I refuse to suffer. I'm going to fight.
When I was doing my homework on you, there was an injury that happened to you before that was, I think, the last injury you actually had. Mm-hmm. Now, what happened there? And you stayed there even after you were injured?
Yeah. So I'll tell this story. So we were doing we're on our way to go get some bad guys, and
we're at
this is Afghanistan.
Okay. And
then there was a commandant IED, meaning the IED could be set off remotely, right? And like I said, I was driving ATV, so we didn't have jammers. They would put these, they would block all ability to set one off, but the ATVs didn't have them. So I remember I was at the rear of the convoy, and our ATVs didn't have them, and the Afghan trucks didn't have them either. So as I was sitting, we crossed a linear danger area, and what we would do when you get to a spot where it's like an open area, it was a riverbed. The 2 ATVs, we would take turns, like, hey man, or I'll clear this one. So you're basically going out there with some guys and all right, man, are we gonna get
Russian roulette?
We get across. All right, we're good. Then you call across. You call, hey man, we're clear. Go and send a convoy. So boom, everyone comes across. So I had just done that once. I waited, and we would leapfrog. So then the other ATV, Paul was on that driving that ATV that day. One of the senior guys, another sniper. So then he took the lead, and I was waiting for the convoy to pass me. So then I was sitting on a spot. And then the last vehicle was coming up, and it was one of the Afghan vehicles, and they didn't have the jammer. So then as I'm pulling forward, their truck pulls forward and goes on that exact same spot. And the guy could have set it off at any time, but I'm just one guy. Why kill one guy when you can kill a truck of guys? So he set it off, and it went off, and thankfully it went low order meaning low order detonation. Not all of it went off. It was like 3 stacked anti-tank mines. It would have created a crater that you put this whole building inside. But it did enough to where it threw me through the ATV, lifted the truck. No one got hurt but me, right? And then they found they saw the other IED in the front of the convoy. It was kind of a busy day, right? So I don't remember. One of the Afghans told me what happened. Because they told me, I was like, don't say nothing, right?
What?
I told them, because I got up and I pushed the ATV back over. Nothing happened. I mean, the ATV took a lot of the brunt, flew, and nothing happened, which is amazing. I pushed it back over, and then the Afghan came over, and he was like, good. I'm like, I'm fine. And then my team sergeant, hey, Rod, you good? What happened? Oh, I'm effing fine. But I had lost vision in my left eye at that point. But I'm like, I'm good, because I could hear on the radio like, hey, we got another ID up front. I'm the medic. I'm like, oh shoot, did anyone get hurt? And meanwhile, I'm the one that's hurt, right? So I'm like, anyone get hurt? No, Rad, are you okay? No, I'm good. I was all over the place. I was just angry and yelling, and I didn't have my wits about me because I had a pretty bad brain injury, concussion. So then, it was a long day. Then I'm like, I'm good. I couldn't see. I literally could not see anything on my left eye. I didn't.
Was that scar from that time? Or
no, that was actually another event.
Oh, jeez.
But so anyway, I was feeling bad. I started puking, but we had stuff to do. Continued on, and I continued the mission. Shit. And we were there for 2 more months, and I knew I was messed up. I was like, man, this is not good. But I wasn't going to leave the team. In my mind, I'm like, no, I need to stay. Right, I couldn't see on my left eye. I was just like, oh, I couldn't sleep. I was not in a good way. I would have sent anyone else home, but I'm good. So I stayed the remainder of the deployment because I knew that after that deployment, I was going to go be a sniper instructor. I wasn't going to be on the team no more. I was going to go be an instructor at our sniper school at Fort Bragg. I'm like, I'll get better there. But it didn't get better. And I stayed, and I want to be sure I finish that story with this, is I didn't do anything anyone else would not have done. And this is how I can explain it for everyone to understand. Everyone has played kickball as a kid, right? Yeah. Kickball is like a super fun game. I want everyone to imagine they're 8 years old and they're having the best kickball game of their life. They fall down and skin their knee. Do they stop playing kickball? No. They keep playing kickball. That's all I did.
Wow. I don't think that you did much more than that.
No.
Because that it's like you lose an eye playing baseball. Most of the players aren't gonna sit there and keep playing. But it just goes to show what a good, humble, great guy you are, brother. Yeah. Because you obviously never got sight back in your eye.
So the sight started coming back a little bit, but then my eyes turned into what I call like a married couple who stopped communicating. So I have horizontal double vision. So I found a doctor that it makes a special lens.
Oh, is that?
So it's a special prosthetic lens that covers my entire eye that cuts down enough vision from my non-dominant eye, which is my left eye, to where I can see only one.
Can you see Chris naked over there? With that,
if I wink really hard, yeah, I can see through his hoodie. That's about as far as I can get. But so that's what it is, and it helps, and it's adjusting because what was happening over the years, me not getting it treated, it came back, but then it started.
And why won't you get it treated? Just Wichingon?
Yeah, no, I'll be all right, right? I
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah. So then I really started losing vision. The doctor's like, look, you're going to go blind if we don't do something. And this is what he came up with. Now, why is it blue? I'm going to answer that because people ask me a question. So the doctor, I finally goes, hey, Rod, I got one. They're made specifically for me because it's got to cut down enough stimuli to where I don't know how it works, right?
Right.
So he goes, Rod, I got one. He says, but it doesn't match your eye. I go, I don't care, man. I'll wear a rubber clown nose if it helps me see. I don't care, man. He's like, okay, but it's blue. I'm like, whatever. So I look like a Siberian Husky. That's cool, man. I don't care, whatever. So he gives it to me, and I'm wearing it. And I've been wearing it for about 3 months. Actually, it's the first time I've told this publicly, this story. I've always told like people. So I was flying through the Reagan Airport in D.C., and some people are born like this, right, with two different colors called heterochromia. So I'm standing in a line, and then I turn around. There's this little girl. Her eyes are identical to mine, like a light brown eye and a blue eye. And she looks at me, and she goes, Mommy, that man has eyes like I do. I go, sweetheart, your eyes are far more beautiful than mine. I go, good Lord made you that way. I have to try and look cool to be as pretty as you, but yours are more beautiful. And she blushed. And she goes, what happened? I said, well, I was a soldier in the Army, and I got blown up, and this is how I can see better now. So she got all like shy, the mother smiling, and it was my turn to like go check into TSA, right? So go to security, and then at the end, we got to get dressed again, right? Put your belt on and shoes and whatever. Excuse me. So the mom comes up to me, and she goes, thank you for that. I go, for what? I go, no, thank you. I mean, it was all, you have a really beautiful daughter. I think she's like 7 or 8 years old. And she goes, no, really. She goes, my daughter gets bullied relentlessly. And she says, now she's so proud that she has eyes like a soldier. So I was like, fuck it, I'll never match them. So
That's right.
That's why.
So that's what's up, brother.
Yeah. I don't know her name. I didn't get a name. It was that experience for that little girl. She's probably, this has been in like 2015, so she's probably, I don't do the math out loud, right? She's probably like a teenager, 18, 17, 18, maybe 19
Well,
or so.
I think now that she probably likes it more than anything else. It is pretty cool.
It's different.
I wouldn't want to get blown up to get it, but
It's different. And then when President Bush painted me, and it was this, I'm like, well, now I can never change it. You know?
Right. So give me a story about, and I heard this about your hardest deployment, and it was regarding your son.
Yeah, shit. So remember that I had that conversation with my dad about joining the Army. Right. You know, exact same conversation I had with my Monster One, my oldest son, Antonio. You know, he was, you know, I knew he was going to join. He's of my three boys. You know, I was for sure for him. You know, and I knew he would. We don't push it, right? It's not like, hey, you're going to join. You know, right. You know, Jacob will tell you we don't do that, right? It's got to be a personal choice, because they know, they grew up in it. They've seen what it's like when dad comes home hurt. They've seen what happens. They know what it's like for mom or dad to be deployed. They've seen it. They've known firsthand. They've known many of my 54 friends, or 55 now. 55 friends of mine have never come home. You know, they know so many of them. So they know what it's like. They know the cost of service. Ouch. So anyway, so he's graduating. He goes, Dad, I want to join the Army. I'm like, all right, mijo. What do you want to do? And he goes, I want to be airborne infantry. I'm like, okay. I said, well, you know you're going to come. You grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. You're going to come back to Fayetteville, North Carolina. You're going to be the 82nd Airborne, mijo. And he goes, no, I don't care, Dad. I want to fight. And I'm like, all right, mijo. Okay. You know, so he joins the Army, basic training, infantry, airborne school. As a matter of fact, when he graduated airborne school, I pinned the same wings. So my wings that I had pinned on me were the same wings that I pinned on Kelly, because she wasn't airborne when I met her. After we got married, she went to airborne school. The same wings I pinned on her, those are the same wings I pinned on Antonio. Wow. So pinned those wings on him at graduation. And shortly after that, you know, he's an 82nd, and his unit gets, you know, their numbers up to go deploy. So then there's a place called Green Ramp at Fort Bragg, and it's where everyone deploys, right? You go there, and the family's there, and you give them the farewell ceremonies. You give them that, you know, hug of hope, and then they get on the bird, and they're gone, right? So I remember we were standing there. Antonio was going to his first deployment. He was 19 years old. This young 82nd Airborne infantryman, you know, Antonio's a much bigger, smarter, better looking, stronger version of me. So I see him, you know, and you give him that, like I said, that hug of hope. You're like, God, you know, all I said was, mijo, I want you to come home. So yeah, I give him that hug, right? And then I'm like, oh, and his mom's, and then and here's the thing too, it's like, he's deploying to the Helmand province of Afghanistan. And for anyone that knows Afghanistan or has ever been there or even read any books about it, the Helmand province of Afghanistan is probably one of the most inhospitable places for an American to be, period, let alone a soldier. I've been deployed there twice and fought a lot. His mother had been deployed there twice and fought a lot. So then, you know, I can't imagine what it would have been like for my father to watch me graduate airborne school and go fight the Viet Cong.
You know what he's going into.
Any more than my grandfather's watching my father graduate his training, go fight Nazis or serve in the Pacific. But then that's our reality. It speaks to the length of the global war on terrorism that we're in, that's still today, that we're still fighting today. So when I hug Antonio, and I'm just like, what? I had this moment, and I know what my dad must have kind of maybe felt like, but it's different. Because I know where he's going. I know who he's going to fight. I know how bad it is. And, you know, he turns around to pick up his weapon and start walking away. And he's, like I said, he's a big dude. And all I see is like this little toddler walking away, and it like broke me in half, man. I'm just like, that was the hardest deployment for me in my life, you know. And they didn't get any easier because Monster One is on his 4th deployment right now. Wow. Right. So those are harder for me. And I sound like, you know, insensitive spouse, because, you know, my ex-wife I watched her go to war, but I was stuck at home caring for the monsters while she would, you know, we figured it out. I don't know how we did it, but we figured it out, right? So, But that was the most difficult deployment for me.
Yeah, because you know what he's going into.
Yeah.
You know the reality of it.
Yeah.
Is there any times that you feel like, man, I wish I could just trade places with him?
It's right there. Of course. But then I also have to respect him as a man.
Right.
Respect him as not just my son, but respect him as a man. He's made those decisions, and I support it, and I'm here for him. And all right, mijo, I love you. Come home.
How do you have a what's the word? Survivor's guilt at all? Yeah. Seen so many of your friends pass away?
Yeah, I don't think any of us that has gone over there that has done that doesn't. I really don't. Especially for me, when I got blown up, times or times I got wounded that.
How many times did you get wounded when you were out there?
Yeah, significantly was probably 3 times, and times where other guys wouldn't survive, but I did for whatever reason, right? I have to joke about it. Like I say, I'm a roach, man. You couldn't kill me. I kept coming back. But that's how I deal with it is try to joke about it. But yeah, survivor's guilt. It's I don't think any of us go over there and don't have that. Especially if you know them. I mean, it's just I know the familias.
And it's got to be a little tougher for you as well. I mean, not that it's worse for one of your comrades than you, but I mean, a lot of times you're the guy there trying to stop the bleeding, trying to help these guys stay alive.
Yeah, there's one of the hardest deaths I ever experienced, or deaths, was responded to. There was a conventional unit that got blown up, and they were in a firefight, and I showed up and to help out, and some young soldiers. I didn't know who they were, never met them, but they were, 2 of them. There wasn't a single thing I could do, and it was hard. It was that's hard, and you're watching them, you're doing everything you possibly can do, and again, those are those moments like I mentioned with that baby and. With those young soldiers, and you're they're looking to you to help me, and then it's just beyond your capabilities, and the good Lord has a plan, and I don't have to like it.
Right.
I don't know if I'll ever accept it, but that's just nature of the job, I guess.
You ever wake up in the middle of the night having bad dreams, or?
Oh man, yeah, I do. I mean, I'll share. I mean, not gonna. I'm a pretty open book. So, yeah. I mean, I call them my shadows. I know what waits for me at night when I close my eyes. I know what's there, and not to, not to diminish it or anything. It's just that's just part of it. It's just part of me. And I'm. Here's the thing too. It's I don't regret anything. I'm tremendously honored. I consider it a blessing to have everything that I've experienced in my life, and I'm glad I feel that way. Because what's the opposite of that? What if I didn't give? What if I didn't care? What if none of that ever bothered me? What if I didn't put my heart into everything? What does not feeling mean? Then I'd be a sociopath, right? Yeah. So I look at it. I'm like, you know what? That's just my path. What's been placed in front of me. I'll take it as it goes, but I like I said earlier, I'm not going to suffer anymore. But I'll recognize it, And I think a lot of people, they don't want to acknowledge or look at what is hurting them or pulling them back, whatever trauma, whatever history, whatever happened to them, whatever they experienced, whatever they saw, whatever they did, right? Because it's scary, but you have to do that, right? Until you do that, you're not going to be able to fight it. And here's an example: no one's going to step into a ring or a cage with a blindfold on to fight somebody. Yeah. So why do we do that with ourselves, with all the stuff that we carry around, that we know we're facing, that we know better than anyone else? We know because it's us, it's what we've experienced. But we choose to do that, and I think it's counterproductive.
Well, I think you speaking about it doesn't just help you; it helps countless of other vets that may be going through the same struggle and just don't know how to deal with it. And speaking about it, talking about it, that up the top just. Is the first thing that helps. And
I hope that, when people talk about suicide, I wish people would stop thinking about 90% of the time when people talk about suicide, everyone's mind almost always goes to the veteran population. And I think it's a human issue.
Yes.
And I hope, so I try to speak broadly about it, traumas and experiences in life and what's bringing people down, that applies to whether you've been to war or whether you've never been to war.
Oh, 100%.
It's a human condition. It's something that occurs within inside us when, placed in certain situations. So, I hope that if anything I'm saying or any of the listeners or watchers, look, that's, you don't have to go to war to feel like that or to accept that or to face it, to realize that you do it the same way.
Right. Now, another side of you that people may not see or know about you is you're an artist, Rod. You're an artist, right?
Yeah, I am. So I got introduced to art when I was at Walter Reed at the hospital as part of the treatment program. And, I was completely agnostic to art. Like, I didn't like art. Like, what is it? Some hippy-dippy shit. Like, I'm not, what are you talking about? But I remember the art therapist, she, God bless this woman, Melissa Walker. She was like, all right, today we're gonna paint our mask. And I'm like, what? Come on, doc. I mean, she's like, right, it's part of it. And I'm like, okay, I don't like to cause trouble. I'm like, all right, what do I got to do? I said, what do you want me to do? I go, what do you want me to paint? She goes, you paint whatever you want. I go, no, what do you want me to, what do I do with this? And she's like, I want you to tell yourself something. And so it was a mask, right? It was just like a face, but it was brown, so you could paint on it. And she was like, just put a message in there. Tell yourself something you don't know how to say. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? So I'm like, all right. So I started to paint, and I'm like, what would I say? Like, how would I? And man, I will tell you, that was like another like lightning strike moment in my life where, like, I realized the true power and beauty of art. It's able to communicate a thought, share an emotion, bring people together. I mean, it's the purest form of communication is art. And then I was able to put certain things in there to tell myself that I couldn't verbalize, that I wasn't ready to say out loud, but I could say it in this piece. And it broke me down. I mean, it completely broke me down, and it just expanded my view on how to communicate and how to touch. And then I realized that art, everyone is an artist if they choose to be. Everyone has a capability, and artist doesn't necessarily, paint on a canvas or notes or a sonnet or a song or like what I like to do is like to forge metal, or no, it could be your artistic expression could be how you are as a parent, how you are as a friend, how you are as a husband. Pursue something passionately, purely, without any expected return of investment, and that's art.
So what do you do? You do the forge metaling thing, right?
Yeah, I do.
So how did that begin?
So when I got, like I mentioned earlier, there was Walter Reed, then the psychiatric facility, and then some other places, and then I was back at my unit at Fort Bragg. One of my bosses, the sergeant major, was like, "Hey, Rod, I got a guy coming out to teach a forging class. Maybe it'll be good for you." I'm like, I like knives and stuff, yeah, of course. I'm like, but I looked at it as like an occupational therapy because my vision was still all messed up. And I'm like, well, maybe it can help me coordinate. All right, I can do something with it, productive. And then I started, when you get that hot piece of metal out there, it requires intense focus, and you have to be very focused on what it is that you're doing and how you do it. And when I did that, everything else just went away. That's the one. Everything went away. All I had to do was that. It was pure. And so what I was able to do, or what I still love to do is create. And I have an idea of what I may want to make. The material has an idea of what it wants to become. And we figure it out together, right? Dope. And that's what I do. And everything I've ever forged or made, I've never like bought production steel to use. It was always something else prior for me. Whether it was a railroad spike or some I've been blessed with to have some relics from 9/11, some tower steel and stuff, or whatever it is. It was something prior to me continuing to make it, push this thing on its journey, whatever it is. And it's just.
You sell any of that stuff?
I have never sold a single thing I've made, and this is what I've done with it. And what I've done is I've used my art to thank people in ways that I don't know how to. Sometimes thank you isn't enough, right? We all know that. So I've made things for certain people to say thank you. I have donated some of my things for auction, for charities, but I haven't made one penny off anything I've ever made because I don't want customers. I think that if I make something, if someone asks me to make something and they pay for it, then now I'm working for them, and they may not like what I may, and I'm like, I don't want anybody to mess up my own artistic expression.
If you want to send anything down this way, we'd be honored to have something in our studio from your stuff. Man, I saw some of the stuff. It's very cool, bro.
I love, and it's not always like knives and axes, but I've made jewelry, I've made earrings and pendants, and I just
So now let's get down to Rod. Now you're a huge advocate for veterans. What is the terrorist? What is it? War on
the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Sure. So,
and one more time, say what is it?
I would say the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation.
Okay.
The GWOT Memorial Foundation. So the GWOT Memorial Foundation is the congressionally designated charity tasked with building a national global war on terrorism memorial in Washington, D.C. So think Vietnam Wall, World War II Memorial, Korean War Memorial, even the museums. Like the way our nation builds all those things up there is a charity, leads the effort, raises the money, and does everything, design, like all of that. That charity does. So I'm the president and CEO of that foundation. I'm not one of the founders. They came together in 2015, and then I was speaking at an event, and they're like, the board of directors, some of them were there, and they're like, Rod, could you help us out? We would love to. So I joined the board in 2016. The first thing we had to do was get authorization. So in 2017, we introduced a bill to the House and Senate to get authorization to build this. We had to get an exemption from a law that says a war has to be over for 10 years in order for a national war memorial to be built. They wrote that law in 1986. We followed that law today. We would never see this memorial. So we introduced it in 2017, swept through the House and Senate, and it passed. And then that's when this small group of veterans and family members were like, oh, damn, now it's a good idea, Ferry. Like, oh, man, we got to do this. Shortly after that, I was asked to step into the leadership role. And in 2018, I stepped in the leadership role and built the foundation that you see today. I had to go back to Congress to pass another bill to build this memorial on the National Mall, because in 2003, they said the National Mall, it's called the Reserve, was closed. Nothing new has been authorized.
The books are closed.
Yeah, it's cerrado, man. No más. And we took surveys, we polled people, and everyone felt strongly it belonged there. So I'm like, all right. So I went to the people that control the space, the various bureaucracy agencies that exist. I, hey, we want to do it there. They're like, Rod, you can't. I go, we want to build it on the National Mall in the Reserve. They're like, you can't. I go, you're saying I can, or you don't think I can? Because I know if I pass a bill, we'll be able to do it. They're like, Rod, look, no one's been able to do that since 2003. We're going to fight you every step of the way because it's against the law. There's an administration that's going to support you. It's not going to pass through the House Natural Resources Committee. It's not going to make it to the Senate Energy Natural Resources Committee. It's going to take you 10 to 15 years, tens of millions of dollars, and you're still not going to be successful. It's not going to happen. I said, but if I pass a bill, we can build this in the reserve. They're like, well, of course, we can have a conversation. I'm like, okay, cool. I just want to let you know we're very transparent in what we do. I'm gonna do it. They're like, and I ended the meeting. They're like, okay. 2.5 years later, President Biden signed my bill into law.
Nice, bro.
And so in April of last year, we got our site, approved. Yeah, and now I can tell everyone where it's going to be built. So now we're actually in the design phase of the memorial. Hopefully by the end of this year, I should be able to have a design to show everybody what we're going to try and get approved. Like all those people that told me we couldn't build it, we'll get them involved to help, to get it approved. I hope to be able to stick a shovel in the ground by end of 25 and be done by 27.
Congratulations to you and all the vets, man. That is beautiful, brother.
It's. I just remember who I work for.
Right.
This is the most broad, diverse, and inclusive war memorial ever to be built. I'm not saying those words because everyone feels they got to say those words, right? So we're honoring everyone that served. So there's 4 tenets that lead the foundation. These are tenets that I came up with in 2019. Honor. We're going to honor everyone that served, both the uniform and non-uniform. Because while we are over 7,000 uniformed individuals have lost their lives in the global war on terrorism, I think probably 99.9% of the people don't realize that we have over 3,400 non-uniformed service members. As a matter of fact, the very first individual that was killed in the global war on terrorism was a gentleman by the name of Johnny Michael Spann. He worked for the CIA. First KIA wasn't even a uniformed individual. So this is honoring everyone that served. I want to just pause for a second and think about those 3,400 plus families that no one even talks about or even recognizes. There's a reason that we are able to defend the nation with less than 1% of our nation. It's because we have men and women right now performing wartime missions in a war zone that was once performed by one of us in uniform, but now they're performed by someone that isn't. Right? So we need to recognize that. We need to tell how we have fought this incredibly complex, difficult to define war that has spanned the entire globe. People don't realize that we're fighting in a lot of places right now, but no one knows that. It's like there was not 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And this is how I can explain it for everybody to understand, is nobody considers Operation Overlord, which is the named operation of the D-Day invasion. That's what it was called, Operation Overlord. Okay. No one considers that its own separate war. So why do we consider Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Inherent Resolve, Operation Udon, all these other named operations in support of a global, a war effort, their own separate wars? That's not how we fight. So this is everything that we've been doing, this is that war, right?
Now, do you think when it comes to like war as far as terrorism, you think there's ever a way to win it? Because, some of those guys, and I'm sure you may feel a certain way about them, but you got to respect their gangster because they've been fighting for hundreds and not thousands of years.
This war, and that's why I say it's incredibly complex and difficult to define. Right? Do I ever think that? I don't think your average American understands that there are people out there that want to destroy their way of life.
Yes,
fundamentally, they don't understand that they may have difficulties to accept the fact that there are individuals out there that would love to come into your house and shoot every single one of you in the face.
Literally.
Those are the people we are at war against.
Right.
We're not at war. This is not a conquest war. This is not a war for oil. This is not a war for we those brave men and women that are out there serving and fighting and furthering a national policy that they didn't write, right? They didn't. Right. None of them out there doing that wrote the policy. They're doing it because they're serving you. They're serving everyone that's listening right now. They're serving you. They're serving people that will never even know their name.
Right.
Right. So that's why I say I know who the hell I work for. I remember that. And that's why I'm relentless. I tell me no all day. That's fine. I'll figure out a way. I am absolutely relentless in this, and I'm not going to stop because I know who I work for.
All right, we got a super chat. Rod, OG Cali Grove 99 super chat. Appreciate that. Respect to all the guests you have on your platform. Give so much knowledge and game in every episode. Nothing but respect for you, Rambo, at the American Cholo podcast. That's the New Mexico Rambo right here, player. No, you're the real deal, brother. I mean, it's and when I say you're the real deal, it's not taking away anything from anybody else in the service who's also the real deal. You're just a mirror image of them. So when I say you're the real deal, I'm talking about every single person in the service, and I'm talking from the chefs,
amen,
mechanics, everybody, because a lot of times people don't get that respect because they think, you're in the service, bro. You are protecting, you are helping our country, brother, 100%. We definitely appreciate that. So what do you think we can do better as a country to help out veterans, help out people in the service?
I think first is realize we're not different than the rest of you, right? A lot of us will, get treated a little bit differently or look at us like a little bit standoffish. Not everybody looks like me, right? But sometimes we're treated a little bit. We're looked at different. We're not broken, right? Every one of us in this nation faces our own individual struggles. The veteran community has faced some very unique struggles, where they have some unique struggles today, but they're no different, right? I think just look at them as your hermano y hermana first, because then that lets us know that, like, okay, I'm home, and they don't have to like try to fit in because they're welcome anyway, right? So when the World War II generation came home, they didn't face any of this stuff, right? I'm not saying they didn't have their struggles, but they didn't face the issues that the veteran community does today, because 11% of the population served in World War II. Korea was 7%. Vietnam was, in my father's generation, got treated like shit. I mean, we'll never recover from that. There's no amount of apologies we can make for what they were treated, the way they were treated. But it was still 4.3% of the population. at any given time, you probably got about 1% of this population right now that has actually served in this 20-plus year war. 20-plus years, man. That's crazy when you say it like that. Now, when I say it that way, I hope everyone understands I'm proud of that. I am so proud that it only takes that small percent to fight for the rest of us. That shows the strength, resiliency, selflessness of those. That should be the freaking goal, right? We shouldn't need 1 out of 10 people to fight for us when we can have 1 out of 100 fight for us. That's awesome. We need to sing the praises of that, right? That's the goal. But we need to, sometimes the veteran community needs a little bit more. They need that recognition. They need that acknowledgement. They need that more so than giving us a sweatshirt at an NFL game, more than 10% on Veterans Day at a IHOP or whatever, right? Like, look at some of the programs. Look at some of the things that that would help the veteran community and to fill some of those gaps, because a lot of our families face some unique struggles that nobody faces. So, I think just treating us as your familia first, for sure. Right? And then be open to the thought, and I'm speaking to, primarily the politicians that control the purse strings in this nation, right? Sure. Like, all right, cool. All right, where should we allocate more funds, right? I'm not someone that bashes the VA. I know Secretary McDonough, Dennis is a great guy. Man, he's doing all he possibly can, but man, they need help, right? Well, maybe let's figure out what we can do to help them more, right? Or maybe we can, that's who I'm speaking to, but like as far as the money goes. But what I mean for like us regular, everyday Americans, just treat us like your familia, man. We're not different.
For sure. Now, my last question for you is, I want you to tell me the story of your 6-year-old son and when you were pretty much told that you're no longer part of the service.
Damn. And damn, Gil. All right, man. So when I was told, Walter Reed, they were like, hey, when I got this diagnosis list, they're like, Rod, you can no longer perform your duties as a Special Forces Green Beret. We're initiating medical retirement proceedings. For me, my life fell apart, right? I'm like, well, who am I if I'm not that? Everyone, socially, we have our master status, right? What it is that you do. Some people it's a mechanic, some people it's a priest, some people it's a doctor. It's just your master status. That's what you consider yourself. No one considers themselves a father, a husband, a wife, a tío, a best friend, a hermano. They don't do that. So I was like, well, what am I now? Who am I? So I didn't realize, at that time I was a husband. I was a father of 3. That's not what I thought. So I went, my issues got even, I got deeper into down that rabbit hole of depression and all that stuff, right? And then, Jacob will tell you, he was there. I was struggling with a lot of physically. I was falling over. My life was not bueno, right? It was a really low point in my life. And then, one day, damn, he's sitting right here. It's hard to tell this story.
Was that
so? It was Jacob.
Him?
It was Jacob.
God,
yeah.
Okay.
So he was 6 years old, and he comes to me. He goes, Dad, what's wrong? I go, what do you mean, mijo? I'm sitting there on the couch, right? And this is
you're a very low point in your life.
Yeah. I was still drinking, and I go, what do you mean, mijo? Dad, what's wrong? He goes, what happened? He goes, what happened? Because he see me falling. He saw all the stuff I was dealing with, right? I said, well, like, what do you mean? Like, well, so that what happened? And I'm like, and children are visual learners. I understand that. I'm like, so I'm like, all right, let's get some paper. And I was like, all right. And so I got paper, and I can't draw very well, right? Mm-hmm. So crude drawing. So I started going through injuries or things that had happened to me through my entire military career with my son. And I went in at a level of that I had never even gone with any of my doctors, because how do you explain what eating a charge means to a 6-year-old? And eating a charge for us is like when we go in and we put explosive charges onto doors or walls to go in, you place it on there and then you back up and you wait for it to go off and you go in. Well, then there's security on the wall before you go in, but then you try to back up, but everyone's anxious to get in. So you're like, if you're number one man, you're like, oh, shoot. This charge is right, not even a foot from you. It's called eating the charge. So you look down, you open your mouth, So your eardrums don't boom, and the goes off enough to where, and it's not focused to you. It's always focused that, but there's a shock wave. So you eat it, right? And so how do you explain that to a kid? So I drew it. How do you explain to a 6-year-old what it's like to, fall 35 feet from a fast rope? Fast roping is when helicopters come in, they flare, the ropes go out, and it's just this big, thick rope, right? And you have all this stuff on, you go to grab it, and then you're wearing your body armor, everything, you go to grab it. But, like, sometimes at night especially, you got nods on, and night vision goggles, and you just go, let go, and then the guy, everyone's anxious to get off, and you get bumped, and you're like, oh, shit, I missed the rope. And then you fall 35 feet and land on your neck and land on your head. But again, for whatever reason, like I said, I'm a roach. I was able to get up, but I barely remember that incident because I bashed my head in. And, that was, I had broken my neck, but I didn't know till a few days later. But, how do you explain that to the kid? So then I'm going through all this, right? And then to include the IEDs and everything like that. So then I'm done, and I don't even think he remembers it. I go, okay, Mijo, that's what's wrong. That's what happened. He goes, okay, I get up. And then he gets up and walks away. And I'm like, what do you mean you get it? Like, I don't even get it. I don't even know where I'm at. I don't even know who I am anymore. Oh, hold on, Mijo, hold on. What do you mean? What do you mean you get it? And he comes back, and it was like 20, 30 minutes. It took me to go through this. I had his attention for 30 minutes. I go, Mijo, what does this mean to you? Like, what do you mean you get? What do you get? I don't get it. He goes, this means my dad's hard to kill.
Yes, sir.
So where I saw failure, I saw, like, my end, my son saw triumph. He saw hope. He saw strength, right? So, the beautiful child's mind, they see the clear thing. I was all like, I'm all messed up. I can't even whatever, but I'm here. I'm here for him.
Right.
Because his dad's hard to kill. His dad's a roach.
His dad is not a roach. His dad is a damn Green Beret. His dad is a soldier. And his dad is owed a great deal of gratitude from this country, man. No. I appreciate you so much coming on, Michael, man. This was wow. This is a amazing story, brother. I can't tell you enough. Just thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man. Look over here. Let people know where they can find you. Let people know, your shout-outs, whatever you got to do, man.
Right. Well, I want to give a shout-out to my hermano here, man, for allowing me to share my dos centavos with everybody. I'm pretty easy to find on social media, but I would really love it if everyone were to check out the foundation, the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation. We're all over social media and stuff, and I'm pretty easy to find on social media too. Monsters Dad, pretty easy. I think Gil follows me.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm easy to find if anybody wants to reach out and say what's up or send me some QOs or something.
There you go. All right, people, we appreciate you tapping in. If anything we learned here, we learned the sacrifice that these gentlemen and women do for their country, man. Appreciate you guys. Shout out to all the veterans. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we're out of here, man.
Bueno, gracias.